Every morning you wake up to a war you can't see, but you feel it, the heaviness, the doubts, the quiet battles no one knows you're fighting. Yet, what if the struggle is not a sign of weakness, but a call to transformation? This book exposes the unseen war raging over your heart and reveals the one weapon darkness cannot withstand: the supernatural love of God. Follow the journey of a soul awakened, forged in battle, strengthened by breakthrough, and commissioned to carry divine love into the world. Your mornings are about to change. Your heart is about to rise. The revolution begins within you. Breaking news this morning. Before alarms ring and sunlight touches the windowsill, a conflict has already erupted. As the world lies quiet, spiritual correspondents confirm that every person wakes up not into peace, but into the center of an invisible battlefield. There is no warning, no neutral ground, only a silent war waiting at the edge of consciousness. Sources inside the unseen realm report early movement from doubt, slipping into mind like a thief in the gray stillness of dawn. Fear and anxiety position themselves as strategic entry points, prepare to ambush confidence and joy. Analysts describe these attacks as subtle yet calculated, aimed at weakening the heart before the day even begins. Further intelligence reveals that lies operate much like shadowy propaganda, targeting emotional vulnerabilities with relentless precision. These whispers disguise themselves as truth, blending into the inner dialogue so seamlessly that many fail to recognize the intrusion until hope begins to erode. Field reports indicate a rising tension between divine calling and internal resistance. On one side stands the quiet voice of destiny, steady, persistent, urging the soul forward. On the other, distractions and spiritual resistance gather like storm clouds, attempting to suffocate purpose under the weight of discouragement. Eyewitness accounts from the spiritual front lines highlight a critical fact. Every morning carries both danger and opportunity. What appears to be an ordinary sunrise is actually the opening scene of a much larger struggle, one that determines the direction of your day and the condition of your heart. As today's headline story unfolds, one truth becomes clear. This is not just another morning. This is a fight for your destiny, a call to wake up not only physically, but spiritually, to step into the light with awareness, courage, and a heart ready to be shaped by the one who loves you beyond measure. Following yesterday's breaking revelation that every morning begins on a battlefield, new developments confirm that the conflict intensifies the moment the heart begins to seek God. Reporters embedded in the spiritual realm are now observing heightened resistance, shadows stirred, strongholds awakened, and an unseen enemy unsettled by even the smallest movement toward divine love. Officials from the Heavenly Communications Office report an immediate spike in internal turbulence. Doubts that entered quietly at dawn are now forming alliances with old wounds, past failures, and hidden insecurities. Analysts warn that these forces are attempting a coordinated takeover, targeting the very areas God is trying to heal. Sources close to the situation reveal that the moment the heart whispers, "Lord, teach me to love," a dramatic shift occurs in the atmosphere. It is as if the prayer sends shockwaves to the spiritual world, exposing territories long held in darkness. The shadows begin to panic, not because the heart is weak, but because it is waking up. Investigators examining the scene report that the fears attacking the heart are not random. They are strategic, resurfacing memories of betrayal, rejection, and disappointment. Their objective is clear: to convince the heart that love is too costly, too dangerous, and too painful to pursue. Eyewitnesses describe a sudden surge of internal conflict, an emotional storm rising without warning. Thoughts collide like clashing weather fronts. Peace is challenged. Confidence wavers. The heart, pulled between heaven's voice and its own history, feels torn in two. Anchors are tested. Faith is shaken. In the command center of the spirit, however, a different narrative emerges. Heaven broadcasts a steady, unwavering truth. God is not intimidated by the shadows. Reports confirm that divine love is moving in, not to condemn the fears and wounds, but to confront them with mercy, power, and light stronger than anything hidden in the heart. Correspondents embedded within the soul note a dramatic shift when grace enters the conflict. What once felt like chaos begins to feel like a confrontation. Purposeful, intentional, deeply personal. God is not exposing shadows to shame the heart, but to liberate it. This is not an attack. It is an intervention. Meanwhile, resistance intensifies. Old lies attempt one final maneuver, telling the heart that change is impossible. Yet intelligence from the kingdom confirms these lies are weakening. Their hold is slipping. The very act of seeking God's love has already begun to dismantle them from the inside. As the story unfolds, it becomes clear that today's battle is not just about survival. It is about transformation. The heart is not being destroyed. It is being rebuilt. What once felt like a fight against darkness is now revealed to be a rescue mission orchestrated by God Himself. Overnight, new developments have shaken the spiritual landscape. Following the rising conflict within the heart and the exposure of long-hidden shadows, credible reports now confirm that heaven has initiated a full-scale pursuit. What began as inner turmoil has escalated into a divine rescue mission, one that darkness cannot silence or stop. Intelligence sources indicate that the heart's cry, "Lord, teach me to love," has triggered a response from the throne of God Himself. Analysts describe it as immediate, intentional, and overwhelmingly personal. The moment the prayer went up, love began to move, not slowly, not cautiously, but with unstoppable force. Field correspondents reveal shocking new footage from the unseen realm. God is not waiting at a distance. He is advancing, directly, quickly, purposefully. Reports show Him stepping through barriers of fear, navigating through emotional debris, and entering territory marked by past wounds without hesitation. This is not passive affection. It is relentless pursuit. Officials from the Celestial Communication Network confirm that heaven's activity is intensifying. Messengers of light have been dispatched to counter lies, reinforce truth, and strengthen the heart. Their reports state that God's objective is not simply to comfort the wounded, but to reclaim what was lost, restore what was broken, and revive what has grown numb. Eyewitness accounts from within the soul describe a dramatic shift in atmosphere. Where shadows once held dominance, warmth begins to rise, slow, steady, undeniable. It feels like sunlight piercing storm clouds. Analysts note that this is no ordinary comfort. This is the presence of a God who refuses to give up on His creation. Sources close to the heart recall memories flashing like newsreels, moment of failure, regret, or wandering, now reinterpreted through the lens of divine mercy. Reporters emphasize that this is not condemnation but revelation. Scenes once associated with shame are revealed as moments where God had been quietly intervening, protecting, and rescuing all along. Resistance attempts to escalate, but the tone of the battle has changed. Darkness is no longer the aggressor. It is retreating. Intelligence suggests that the enemy is unsettled by this level of divine involvement. What they hope to cloud with fear is being overwhelmed by truth, grace, and the unmistakable nearness of God. Meanwhile, spiritual analysts confirm a profound discovery. The heart is beginning to recognize that this love is not earned, not fragile, and not conditional. It is fierce, it is intentional, and it is pursuing. Every lie that once whispered, "You're alone," is being dismantled by the evidence of God who continues to draw near. Inside the heart's command center, new stability is forming. Strength increases, hope rises, confidence returns, not because the battle is over, but because the heart is no longer fighting alone. Reports describe a growing realization. If God refuses to abandon the heart, then there is nothing the shadows can do to stop its transformation. Developing news this morning. Mere hours after heaven advanced in a powerful rescue mission, the heart is now facing an unexpected and explosive crisis. Correspondents report that a real-life encounter, sudden, unfiltered, unavoidable, has become the flashpoint where inner battles collide with real-world pressure. What was once a private spiritual conflict has erupted into a public emotional emergency. Officials confirm that the trigger came without warning. A difficult person, a painful reminder, a conversation that struck too deep, too fast. Analysts describe the moment as a collision zone, where old wounds were ripped open and the heart's growing desire to love was violently challenged. Love, once a beautiful prayer, now feels impossibly costly. Eyewitnesses inside the heart's command center report a dramatic spike in emotional intensity. Calm shatters, peace fractures, anger, frustration, and exhaustion surge like a sudden storm. Fear stirs, whispering that change was only an illusion. The heart begins to tremble under the weight of emotions it thought were already healed. Sources indicate that the shadows exposed in earlier chapters are now attempting a final counteroffensive. Memories of betrayal flash like lightning, past disappointments roar like thunder, and accusations echo through the soul like emergency sirens. The heart, overwhelmed, begins to question whether loving like God is even possible. Meanwhile, analysts note a heartbreaking development. The heart feels torn between what it wants to do and what it feels capable of. Reports describe an internal crisis moment in which the heart pleads silently, "Lord, this is too much. I can't do this. Loving like you hurts." The vulnerability is raw, unfiltered, and painfully human. Heaven's response, however, is immediate. Correspondents report a wave of divine compassion, moving in like reinforcements, arriving at the scene of a disaster. Not to scold, not to pressure, but to hold. Grace steps forward, not as a gentle whisper this time, but as a stabilizing force, steady, strong, unshaken by the heart's breaking point. Officials from the Celestial Communication Network confirm that God is not surprised by this moment. In fact, sources say he anticipated it, prepared for it, and has already positioned love directly in the center of the chaos. What felt like failure is revealed to be a crucial turning point, an invitation for God to strengthen what the heart cannot carry alone. Witnesses describe an emotional shift as divine love begins to confront the crisis, not by removing the pain, but by meeting the heart inside it. Reporters say it feels like warm hands catching something fragile before it shatters completely. Love does not demand perfection. It offers presence. As the situation evolves, the heart begins to sense a truth rising from within the storm. Learning to love like God is not about performance. It's about surrender. Analysts report that this realization softens the heart, easing the internal pressure and opening a pathway for transformation even in the darkest emotional moment. New developments this morning reveal that following yesterday's emotional breaking point, heaven has launched an urgent and unprecedented healing operation within the heart. What first appeared to be collapse is now being reclassified by spiritual officials as critical restoration territory. Correspondent confirmed that divine intervention has shifted from rescue to recovery, deep, surgical, and exceedingly tender. Sources embedded near the heart report that God is now entering areas long cordoned off by pain. These are regions layered with old memories, unresolved grief, unspoken disappointments. Territory so fragile that even the heart itself rarely goes there. Analysts say this is no ordinary moment. It is a spiritual emergency room where the great physician is at work. Eyewitness accounts reveal that as God moves closer to these wounded places, the heart reacts with mixed emotion, relief, fear, resistance. There are tremors, echoes of old hurts rising like smoke from long-buried fires. Reporters note that this internal stirring is not a setback, but a sign that deep roots are being uncovered. Officials from the Heavenly Restoration Department confirm that forgiveness is now the central operation underway. Not forced forgiveness, not mechanical or rushed, but the gentle unwrapping of old injuries so that healing can finally begin. Analysts emphasize that this process is delicate. Heaven works with precision, not pressure. Field correspondents describe an astonishing development. Memories once surrounded by darkness are being flooded with light, not to erase them, but to reframe them. What was once the source of bitterness becomes the soil for breakthrough. What once defined identity begins to lose its power as divine love rewrites the story. Sources indicate that resistance, though present, is weakening rapidly. Accusations and lies that once held the heart in emotional captivity are losing their influence as truth enters like morning sunlight breaking through fog. Reporters on the ground say it feels like the atmosphere is shifting from suffocation to clarity. Inside the heart's command center, new reports suggest that the weight the heart carried for years is beginning to lift. Analysts compare the chains falling, not loudly but quietly, like metal releasing after a lifetime of strain. The heart begins to breathe again, not shallow, fearful breaths, but slow, steady ones that signal returning strength. Witnesses describe a profound moment when the heart whispers a prayer it never thought to pray. "Lord, help me forgive." This simple sentence sends shockwaves through the spiritual realm. Not because the battle is over, but because the hardest door is opened, the door through which healing can finally flood in. Heaven's response is immediate. A wave of compassion sweeps through the wounded places like warm light pouring into a cold room. Divine love does not rush the heart. It surrounds it, holds it, restores it. This is not fast healing. It is true healing. And true healing always goes to the deepest places. Following yesterday's unprecedented healing operation, new reports indicate that the heart, once fractured and overwhelmed, has entered a new and remarkable phase, activation. Spiritual officials confirm that after the deep wounds were tended by divine hands, the heart has reopened for service, now positioned not merely to survive, but to overflow. Sources from within the restored chambers of the soul confirm a stunning development. Where pain once dictated decisions, compassion is rising in its place. Analysts describe this shift as a dawn after the storm, a calm filled not with emptiness, but with purpose. Something new is stirring, something powerful and alive. Correspondents report increased activity from Heaven's training division. God is now guiding the heart into practical lessons of love. Not dramatic battlefield clashes, but small holy moments. Kindness offered when irritated, patience extended when rushed, grace given when misunderstood. Officials describe these as micro-missions with massive eternal impact. Field reporters note that the heart initially feels unsteady, like someone learning to walk again after years of carrying emotional weight. But each act of love, no matter how small, strengthens spiritual muscles long neglected. Analysts say this is evidence that transformation is shifting from internal healing to external expression. Witnesses describe a fascinating phenomenon. The heart begins noticing needs it used to overlook. A tired face, a discouraged friend, a stranger in silence. Simple opportunities that pass quickly, but now shine like assignments. Insiders say this is proof that divine love is taking hold, training the heart to see as God sees. Resistance attempts to reappear, but officials report that its influence has weakened dramatically. Old lies whisper, "You're not ready," but truth counters with, "You're not alone." The heart does not rely on its own strength anymore. The source of love now flows from the one who healed it. Sources confirm that heaven is providing real-time guidance, directing the heart moment by moment. Reporters liken it to receiving instructions through a spiritual earpiece. Speak softly here. Hold back anger there. Listen longer. Forgive quickly. Divine love is not abstract. It's tactical, intentional, and incredibly personal. Inside the heart's command center, analysts observe something extraordinary. Joy. Not loud, not dramatic. Quiet, steady, like a river running beneath the surface. It is the joy of a heart no longer controlled by fear or pain. The joy of a vessel beginning to carry the very love it once begged God to teach. Eyewitnesses from the spiritual realm report an expanding glow around a heart, subtle but unmistakable. This glow is not emotional hype. It is a radiance of God's love beginning to spill outward. The same love that pursued, rescued, and healed is now flowing to the one who received it. Breaking reports this morning reveal that shortly after the heart began walking in its new identity as a vessel of divine love, an unexpected and urgent field test has erupted. Officials confirm that what was learned in private training will now be challenged in real-time circumstances, and the stakes are higher than ever. This is not a drill. This is live. Sources close to the situation say the test arrived suddenly, disguised as an ordinary moment, a difficult person, a stressful demand, a frustrated voice, a misunderstanding. What initially looked like a small inconvenience has rapidly escalated into a spiritual pressure point designed to test the authenticity of the heart's transformation. Eyewitnesses report a sudden spike in emotional turbulence. The heart feels heat rising, old reactions pulling like gravity, impatience flaring like sparks. Analysts note that this moment feels eerily similar to the breaking point of Chapter 4, except now the heart stands in a different territory, stronger, healed, yet still vulnerable. Officials from the spiritual control room confirm that darkness has launched a strategic counterstrike. Lies echo from the shadows. You haven't changed. You'll always react the same. This love won't hold. Yet heavenly intelligence immediately counters with truth. You are not who you used to be. Love is stronger than memory. Correspondents on the ground describe a tense internal standoff. The heart stands at a crossroads between two familiar paths: the old way, fueled by emotion and instinct, and the new way, shaped by divine love. Pressure builds. This is not just another challenge. This is a defining moment. Field analysts detect a powerful shift when the heart pauses. Just one breath, 1 second, one silent prayer. That pause becomes a doorway. Heaven leans in. Divine reinforcement moves closer. Sources describe the atmosphere changing as God whispers guidance into the heart's inner ear. Choose love. Witnesses report that love begins to rise, not loudly, but steadily, like a quiet tide overtaking the shore. Patience steadies trembling emotions. Compassion softens instinctive reactions. Grace steps forward where frustration once dominated. What looked like an emotional explosion begins to transform into a holy demonstration. Officials confirm that the heart makes a bold and unexpected move. Choosing love where anger would have been justified. Choosing gentleness where conflict could have erupted. Choosing forgiveness before bitterness can take root. Analysts describe this moment as a stunning display of divine intervention through human choice. Correspondents report visible impact. The atmosphere in the situation shifts. Tension dissolves. Peace settles. The heart realizes, almost with awe, that this victory did not come from its own strength, but from the love that has been filling, healing, reshaping, and empowering it since the beginning. In breaking news this morning, spiritual authorities have released a stunning announcement. After the heart's decisive victory in yesterday's high-pressure field test, heaven has officially moved the heart into a new phase, full commissioning. Analysts confirm that this marks the completion of the morning battle cycle and the beginning of a life shaped entirely by divine love. Sources report an extraordinary calm settling over the heart. Not the fragile calm that comes after exhaustion, but a supernatural peace that feels like it was poured straight from heaven's throne. Correspondents describe this peace as thick, radiant, and alive, signaling that the heart is now operating with the strength of God's love, not its own. Officials from the Celestial Command Center have released new data indicating that the heart's spiritual atmosphere has undergone measurable transformation. Compassion is now its dominant frequency. Patience shows unprecedented stability. Grace radiates outward like a beacon. Analysts call this the heavenly signature, evidence of God's love fully formed inside a human vessel. Witnesses from the spiritual realm report a remarkable sight. The heart is glowing, not metaphorically, spiritually. This radiance is what Scripture describes as light in a dark world. It is not a spotlight. It is a lantern, steady, warm, inviting. The kind of light that guides others out of shadows they never admitted they were in. Field reporters confirm that this transformation is already impacting the surrounding environment. Conversations carry more gentleness. Responses carry more wisdom. Interactions leave people feeling seen rather than dismissed, valued rather than overlooked. Love is no longer just internal. It is influencing the atmosphere everywhere the heart goes. Sources indicate that heaven has issued a new set of assignments, not burdensome tasks, but divine opportunities. These include comforting the weary, encouraging the discouraged, forgiving quickly, and loving deeply. Officials stress that these assignments are not mandatory. They flow naturally from a heart aligned with God's own. Correspondents observing from the sidelines report that darkness has noticeably retreated. Lies that once screamed now whisper. Temptations that once dominated now fade quickly. Fear, once a powerful voice, now seems to crumble in the presence of love. Analysts confirm that this is the expected outcome when divine love becomes a ruling force within the heart. In a breathtaking moment, sources say God himself speaks into the heart with clarity. This is what you were created for. This is what my love does. Reporters describe the heart's response as awe, reverence, and overwhelming gratitude, not because it has achieved perfection, but because it has discovered partnership, walking, breathing, and living in step with the love of Jesus. Eyewitnesses confirm the heart now sees the world differently. Faces look softer. Pain looks visible, not hidden. Brokenness looks like an invitation, not a burden. The heart realizes that love is not merely a command. It is a calling, a mission, and a privilege. Heaven's love is not meant to be contained. It is meant to be carried. New reports emerging this morning indicate a shocking and unprecedented development. The love that transformed the heart in Chapter 8 is no longer contained to one life. Spiritual monitoring systems now confirm a ripple effect, waves of divine influence radiating outward, touching people who had no direct contact with the original battle. Analysts are calling this phenomenon the spread of supernatural love. Sources close to the situation testify that the transformation inside the heart has quietly begun reshaping the environment around it, not through dramatic speeches or grand gestures, but through consistent, steady warmth. A soft word here, a patient pause there, a surprising act of kindness in an ordinary moment. These seemingly small interactions are generating measurable spiritual shockwaves. Correspondents report a curious pattern emerging. Individuals who encounter the transformed heart leave feeling lighter, calmer, encouraged, even if they can't explain why. Some describe feeling seen for the first time in a long time. Others report a sudden clarity in their own emotional storms. The love release is not merely comforting, it is awakening. Officials from a heavenly influence department confirm that divine love operates with multiplier power. Unlike human effort, which drains, God's love expands when given away. Analysts observing the data note that the more love flows out, the more is poured back in, an unending supply fueling an ever-growing impact zone. Field reporters have identified several secondary transformations beginning to form. Relationships once marked by tension are healing. Conversations are softening. Old conflicts are dissolving. One witness described it as love weaving itself through the cracks, filling spaces long fractured by misunderstanding and pride. In the spiritual realm, resistance forces are attempting to analyze and counteract this unexpected expansion, but officials confirm the enemy is struggling. Darkness, which once used isolation and internal turmoil to weaken the heart, now finds itself outmaneuvered. Love has gone mobile, no longer contained, no longer predictable. Analysts emphasize that this ripple effect did not emerge in the heart's own strength, talent, or personality. It is a result of a surrendered vessel carrying divine love into common spaces. Cafes, workplaces, grocery store aisles, living rooms, hallways. Ordinary locations are becoming sacred intersections because love is present there. Eyewitnesses describe an increasing intensity in the heart's sensitivity. It now notices quiet pain in others the way a tuned instrument hears the slightest vibration. The heart no longer walks past suffering. It is drawn to it, not by obligation, but by compassion infused with heaven's fire. Reporters call this the signature of a transformed heart. Sources confirm that heaven is pleased, not because the heart is flawless, but because it is flowing. This is a design. Love received becomes love released, and love released becomes an invitation for God to work in others. The movement has begun. The chain reaction is underway, and heaven is amplifying its reach. Breaking reports this morning reveal a staggering escalation in the spiritual atmosphere. The ripple effect traced back to the transformed heart has now grown into what officials are calling a full-scale love revolution. Analysts confirm that what began as a quiet shift in one life has evolved into a multi-layer awakening impacting entire groups, families, and communities. Sources from the Heavenly Impact Network report a massive surge in spiritual activity. Hearts once cold are warming. Walls once impenetrable are cracking. Lives that have long resisted change are beginning to stir. Correspondents describe it as the sound of chains loosening quietly in thousands of places at once. Eyewitnesses confirm that people touched by the ripple effect in Chapter 9 are now becoming carriers themselves. Not intentionally, not forcefully, simply because something inside them has shifted. Their softness is influencing others. Their compassion is drawing out openness. Their patience is diffusing tension. Love is spreading from heart to heart like a holy contagion. Officials observing from the spiritual realm report unexpected developments. Long-standing conflict between individuals are dissolving. Conversations that once erupted in anger now turn toward reconciliation. Acts of generosity, unexplained and uncoordinated, are appearing in multiple locations. Analysts declare that the environment is changing and that divine love has infiltrated the atmosphere like oxygen, Field agents have intercepted stunning testimonies from people who were never directly touched by the original vessel. A discouraged stranger who suddenly felt hope. A weary parent who found renewed strength. A bitter heart softened without knowing why. The revolution is expanding beyond its starting point, reaching those who never expected to be reached. Meanwhile, resistance forces are scrambling to understand the phenomenon. Darkness once relied on division, offense, and fear to weaken humanity. But officials warn that such strategies are losing effectiveness. The spread of divine love is creating unity in places where conflict used to thrive and resilience in hearts once easily overwhelmed. Correspondents stationed within the spiritual epicenter report a remarkable shift in heavenly tone. This is no longer about one heart being healed. This has become a movement of God rewriting the emotional landscape of an entire region. What was once a personal transformation has become a public revival. Inside the heart's command center, analysts note a growing awareness. The vessel realizes it is no longer just surviving or learning. It is influencing, not by striving, not by authority, but by simply carrying the love it received. The heart feels humbled, stunned, and deeply aware that all of this began with a single prayer. Lord, teach me to love like you do. Witnesses report a powerful divine whisper resonating across the spiritual realm. This is what my love can do when one heart says yes. That whisper becomes a declaration, then an anthem, then a banner waved over every life being changed through the revolution. New developments are shaking the spiritual world this morning as officials confirm a sudden and aggressive counteroffensive launched by the forces of darkness. After days of rapid expansion in the love revolution, reported in Chapter 10, enemy lines appear to be reorganizing, recalibrating, and now striking back with calculated precision. Correspondents embedded in spiritual surveillance zones report that the darkness has shifted tactics. Instead of open assaults, it is now deploying stealth attacks, discouragement, confusion, old insecurities resurfacing, subtle lies whispered at unexpected hours. Analysts warn that this shift is strategic. If the enemy cannot stop the revolution from the outside, it will attempt to infiltrate from within. Witnesses close to the original transformed heart report sudden turbulence. Patterns of peace are interrupted by unexpected waves of doubt. Thoughts once conquered begin resurfacing with new intensity. Old wounds, long quiet, begin whispering again. Reporters confirm that these internal tremors are not random. They are targeted. Officials from the Heavenly Defense Authority emphasize that such counterattacks are expected when spiritual influence increases. Light expands and darkness responds. One commander explained. But this time, the love inside the vessel has grown stronger than the fear surrounding it. Still, the conflict is real, and the battlefield has shifted from external surroundings back to the inner world. Field reporters covering the front line observed that even those newly touched by the love revolution are experiencing sudden heaviness. Some describe feeling emotionally foggy. Others report unusual tension in relationships that had recently begun healing. Analysts conclude that the enemy is attempting to disrupt the momentum before it becomes unstoppable. However, hidden within the chaos, something unexpected is happening. The love planted in hearts in previous chapters is proving resilient. Instead of collapsing under pressure, people are turning toward prayer, toward each other, and toward God with a desperation that deepens their faith. Reporters call this phenomenon pressure-borne hunger. Eyewitnesses reveal that in the heart of the original vessel, a new flame is forming, stronger, sharper, more unshakable. The attacks that were meant to weaken it are driving it deeper into God. Each lie is countered with truth. Each fear is overshadowed by faith. Each moment of confusion becomes a doorway back to divine clarity. Authorities confirm that heaven has activated reinforcements. Peace that surpasses understanding is being deployed. Strength is being poured invisibly into weary souls. Angels have been dispatched to guard strategic, emotional, and spiritual gates. Analysts predict that if this continues, the counterattack will ultimately backfire, producing more spiritual growth than damage. Correspondents report a rise in awareness across the region. People are beginning to recognize the difference between God's voice and the enemy's voice. Discernment is sharpening. Courage is awakening. A quiet but fierce determination is spreading to the hearts touched by love. What once felt fragile now feels fortified. Emergency broadcasts began flooding the spiritual airwaves just before dawn as an unexpected surge of light erupted across the region affected by the love revolution. Officials confirmed this morning that the counterattack detailed in Chapter 11 has triggered a dramatic and unprecedented breakthrough, one so powerful that analysts are still processing its scope and implications. Correspondents report that the darkest point of night, the moment when discouragement was strongest and confusion seemed overwhelming, became the very moment heaven intervened with force. Eyewitnesses describe it as a sudden spiritual flash flood of divine presence sweeping through battle-worn hearts. Where heaviness had settled, hope burst in like sunrise. Sources within the Heavenly Defense Authority confirmed that reinforcements were dispatched in extraordinary measure. Angels flanked vulnerable hearts. Truth cut through lies like lightning splitting the sky. Strength surged into souls that felt moments from collapse. The counterattack was met not with resistance alone, but with overwhelming heavenly fire. Field reporters embedded near the original transformed heart reveal a breathtaking scene. While fear attempted to drown it, the vessel cried out, not in panic, but in surrender. And that single moment of surrender detonated a wave of power that rippled outward in every direction. Officials are calling it the ignition point of the breakthrough. Witnesses say that as the vessel prayed, "Lord, I choose your love." Even here, a shockwave of light exploded across the spiritual landscape. Darkness faltered, lies shattered, the atmosphere shifted. It was as if heaven leaned close and whispered, "Enough," and every assault instantly lost its authority. Analysts tracking the aftermath confirm an extraordinary development. The very areas where the enemy attacked the hardest are now becoming the strongest points of spiritual resilience. The wounds that were targeted are turning into wells of compassion. The weaknesses that were exploited are becoming pillars of divine strength. Reporters are calling it the reversal effect. Meanwhile, those influenced by the love revolution in previous chapters are awakening this morning with renewed clarity. The fog is gone. The tension has lifted. Where heaviness once lingered, there's now a surprising peace. Deep quiet, immovable. People describe feeling like something inside them has been reset or lifted higher. Authorities report that the counterattack has not only failed, but has unintentionally accelerated the movement. Hearts are now more aware of spiritual reality, more dependent on God, and more united with one another. What was meant to weaken the revolution has fortified it instead. Darkness underestimated the power of surrendered love. Correspondents observing the spiritual horizon note an uncommon calm settling after the storm, not the stillness of emptiness, but the peace that follows victory. Heaven is not retreating. Heaven is preparing. Analysts believe this breakthrough marks a shift into a new phase of the revolution, one that will be broader, deeper, and far more unstoppable than before. In a stunning development following yesterday's monumental breakthrough, spiritual authorities have released a new directive overnight, one that shifts the tone of the love revolution from internal awakening to active mission. Officials confirm that the transformed heart, now fortified by victory, has been summoned to the spiritual front lines. Correspondents report that the call came not as a command, but as a stirring, an unmistakable inner pull. The vessel woke sensing not just peace, but purpose, a quiet urgency, a weighty invitation. Analysts describe it as the moment a healed heart becomes a chosen heart, selected for an assignment that requires courage, clarity, and supernatural love. Sources within the Heavenly Commission Office report an unusual movement. Angels assembling in formation, preparations being finalized, strategic plans unfolding across the unseen realm. This is not a small operation. Officials confirm the mission is aimed at territories long dominated by fear, bitterness, and spiritual paralysis, areas untouched even by the recent revolution. Field reporters observing the vessel reveal visible signs of the shift. There is a new flame in the eyes, a steadier posture, a heart no longer merely surviving or awakening, but ready. The vessel senses that the calling is bigger than personal growth. It is about stepping into darkness with the light of divine love as a weapon. Eyewitnesses describe a profound moment of commissioning. A whisper from heaven, not loud, but unmistakably authoritative, declared, "I healed you to send you. I strengthened you to use you. Now carry my love where it has never been carried." This message has already begun reverberating across the spiritual landscape, signaling the start of a new phase. Analysts warn that the front lines are not geographical, but emotional and relational. The mission targets broken hearts, hardened minds, and environments saturated with conflict. The vessel is being dispatched not to preach, but to embody love, to step into difficult conversations, heavy atmospheres, and wounded lives with supernatural tenderness and authority. Reports suggest that enemy forces have detected the shift. Dark surveillance activity has increased. Strongholds once comfortable are now on alert. Fear-based operations are tightening their grip in certain territories as resistance attempts to brace for the arrival of love. But heaven's commanders declare that the fear is a sign. Darkness believes the vessel is a threat. Correspondents highlight a powerful change in the vessel's internal posture. Previously, the heart battled for personal freedom. Now, it fights as a liberator. Compassion has become courage. Mercy has turned into movement. The vessel realizes that every wound healed in earlier chapters has equipped it to reach someone still bleeding in silence. Authorities confirm that the breakthrough in Chapter 12 was not an end but a preparation. The dawn victory was heaven's final signal that the vessel was ready to carry divine love into deeper, darker spaces where transformation is desperately needed. The love revolution is now shifting from ripple to invasion.